Have you done the mic test? Can folks on the call hear? Okay, cool. We ready to go? Let me just quiet this one. Merci. So close to the cable. Cool. So I take it we're ready to go? Okay, awesome. We're expecting a little bit bigger attendance today, but you know, you're pretty big, yeah. Good, but I know we have the folks on the call. I think it's over there. Thank you guys for being on the call. Looking forward to taking some of your questions in the end. So let's get started. This applies to the people on the call as well. I don't know if we can take a poll of the folks on the call if they write on the chat. How many of you here and in the call know Careem? Show of hands or write on the chat. Yay. That's cool. Do we got an okay number on the call out of the 20?
Yeah, everybody's answering now.
Okay, cool. Out of those, how many have Careem on your phone? Jonathan. That's the next question. How many of you actually use it? And it's a loosely defined term on purpose, so it's either daily usage, monthly usage, you got one, yearly. Come on, Casper. Okay, cool. I just wanted to sort of take a poll of how many folks know Careem and the usage of it. Do we know online? If we have an okay-ish.
Yeah, we have maybe about 2 people or so that have answered. One person actually said no. So.
Okay, cool. So I think the next few slides are going to be helpful then for that individual, but even for the folks here and the rest of the folks on the call, I think it'll be cool to hear a little bit about the story of Careem and the evolution. So just a bit of a history lesson here. Modasser and Magnus, the 2 co-founders of Careem back in 2012, they started a chauffeur business called Careem, and that's when it was launched. Later, fast forward 6 years, Careem launches its food delivery service, so it starts to get into the mobility of things, specifically food, starting in the Dubai and Jeddah market. Fast forward a couple of years from there, and Careem is acquired by Uber at a $3.1 billion acquisition deal. That same year, Careem has been cooking up in the kitchen something really exciting that we dubbed the Super App. It's essentially a culmination of services into one offering. And in Dubai, we launch our Super App first in its region with 12 services. And then if you fast forward to today, as we were discussing with Diana, we have a proven Super App model in Dubai. And what I mean by this is that the sheer number of multi-service users that we have actually prove that the Super App model is something that's valuable for the region and for our customers. A little bit more information and stats on Careem. We've reached the 1 billion rides threshold, which I think it's pretty exciting to share. Across our user base, we have a little over 52 million registered users, off of which 2.5 million are captains, registered captains. By the way, we call captains our delivery workforce, and we call them captains just out of respect. It's a very regional thing, but certainly without them, we'd essentially be nothing. And then we operate in 10 countries, across of which 100 plus cities. We've had to date over 12,000 Tigers help make Careem what it is today. Today we're 1,600 strong across the different functions and orgs.
What's a Tiger?
A Tiger is what we call a colleague, yeah, an employee. Don't ask me the backstory. But anyway, wanted to highlight the mission. A lot of companies have missions. A lot of companies talk about their mission in public space. But I think this one is special because it's been the same for 10 years. It hasn't changed. And so it speaks to the fact that it's not attached to a ride-hailing business, but attached to really the true essence that is our founding team, but also then the values that they ask the organization to uphold. And that is obviously to simplify the lives of people in our regions. And this ultimately means really talks on experience, on reliability, on the convenience aspect of the value that we're trying to deliver to customers, but ultimately also to build an organization that inspires. And this is also a 2-tiered part here. One speaks to how we want to be a center of gravity for great talent in the region. We want to attract talent both globally, but also locally. And we want to build a story and an experience that inspires folks to join us and hopefully have them inspire us also with their journeys. But also even for those that leave. And we have a good bunch of use cases on this, or case studies of this, where folks leave and they start their own businesses, and very successful businesses at that, right? So it also speaks to an organization that inspires people to even start their own things and do great at that. Another thing that's very particular maybe to a lot of companies, but certainly for Careem, is Mudassir is a great storytelling, our co-founder and CEO. And he loves to tell stories. And one of the stories that really resonates with me, and he tells this occasionally, but it really spoke to me since day one, is that in the very beginning, much like Brian Chesky, very similar Airbnb story, the customer and the company were very close. Like literally captains would come to the office in the early days and they would say, listen, I just drove a customer. Customer said this, that we should change that and we should add this. And yes, it went from there to a feature request. Let's get it designed and implemented, and it's in the app, right? So the relationship between company and customer was one-to-one, right? However, with that said, as a company naturally grows, you start to add a leadership layer that helps define strategies in the future for the business. You add legal teams, you add product teams that write requirements, and the breadth of product and the scale of product starts to grow. Obviously, you have design teams, marketing teams, brand teams, development teams that actually work in the stuff that actually comes out to customers, and only then does that experience is seen by customers. And this ultimately builds what is loosely defined as the company-customer gap, right? This idea that between what the company is and what they're doing and what the customer sees at the end of the day, it's an increasing gap as the organizations grow and scale, and if the maturity of their practices doesn't scale with them. And this is where design comes in, and ultimately where we're honing in the conversation of today for. So I'm Tiago. I today sit as the VP of Design at Careem. This is a little bit about my background, just very quickly. Originally an interaction designer in ad agencies, didn't really think that was my thing. Then worked in the San Francisco Bay Area for the larger part of 10 years, really in my formative years in product design and in technology and in product development, companies like Nuance, Gift, Facebook. Then from there, this is not me, is it? And then from there, moved back home, originally from Portugal, have 3 kids, so distance to home was starting to weigh in on us, wife and I. And so joined a smallish startup in Portugal called Uniplaces as VP of product, leading the whole product triad there. Then from there, global director of design for OLX Group, and now at Careem here in the UAE. Design at Careem, it oversees our 4 main customer segments, and that's it, obviously our end consumers. As I said earlier, a total registered number of 50 million users. We have our merchant and partners, think of them as your restaurants, your shops, your grocery partners that bring the supply to our platform. Third-party tenants, where we're going to zoom in a lot of the conversation today on. These are ultimately what fuels the super app flywheel, right? Without which we essentially wouldn't be able to have a super app. Goes without saying, we cannot scale all services internally, so we need to leverage existing services in our regions in order to have a successful super app. And then our captains. We have a total of 25 or 2,000, 2 million and a half registered captains on our platform, and goes without saying, bread and butter of the business, right? Without whom we just wouldn't be here. So, and this is what it all ties together, right? The design team's purpose, as established 2 years ago by the team, is to really close that gap between Careem as an organization and our customers. And we do that via delightful value add and differentiated experience. It is, at the end of the day, especially in lieu of the fact that we're in a super app business and we're just working on so many verticalized experiences, that it is a competitive market. So the idea of differentiation, innovation does really play a game in the design team's purpose. Very quickly, today we have been a larger team. Today we're a team of circa 40-ish people. We have the team that sits in verticals, in platform central. So we support anywhere from foods, groceries, ride-hailing, captain, or mobility of money, vertical, bikes and away. We then have our platform that's essentially where all of Super App is really centralized. We have our discovery/Super App team, global experiences, care, tenants. Then we have our loyalty program, C Plus and Explore. And then we have the more central functions where we really try to prove the value of different muscles to design, like illustration, like writing, and others. And of course, where we have Aurora, our design system that we could take a whole session talking about, or a whole day for that matter. Today, we're going to be zooming into platform, global experiences, talk about tenants. Excited to pass it over to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for the intro, Thiago. I think it would be nice, like, outline of what Careem was and what it has become and how it has grown, and also the global design. And so we're going to zoom in.
Test. Hello?
Okay, so loud and clear now? Awesome. So I hope you could catch it a little bit from home as well, like what I told, but let's continue and just zoom into the topics that we're working on. So first of all, global navigation, which is basically like all navigation patterns inside the app. So inherently, like when you have different services inside the app, there are new navigation patterns popping up everywhere, and we are like there to create navigation that's unified so that it's easy to navigate around the app between services, and also to generic like overarching parts of the app like customer care and that kind of stuff. Locations, this is basically like being able to save your home address or your work location and being able to reuse it in all other parts of the app. So when you place a food order and you fill in your address and you save it, that you don't have to do it again when you want to have a laundry service. Third-party tenants, Thiago already mentioned it. It's basically our partners, our services that we work with and experiences inside the app. We are responsible for the design part of like aligning the user experience of these external services so that it all feels like it's a Careem service. Activities is something that exists but also doesn't really exist yet, like but it is a generic overview, like a general overview of all of your things you have done inside the app and what you're about to do. So creating that overview in one centralized place. And then we have customer care, which is also something that's like spread across the app experience, of course, because if you need help with your food or with your laundry service, you need one place to reach out and a consistent experience. So yeah, that's what we're working on right now. And maybe the people who are using Careem more fanatically or like have more experience with it might think like, okay, Eric, that's all nice, but I don't really recognize some of these things. Well, that's exactly why we're here. Like we're designing these things right now, and a lot of it will be implemented soon. So for some things, you also get a sneak peek of what's about to come, like in the coming months. Oh, pointed here. Okay, so as an example, let's zoom into one of the topics that we're working on to illustrate like what we do as a team. So this is customer care at Careem at the moment. So when you have a help center at right, it looks completely different than the help center in the food app, and it also looks completely different than the so-called, like this more internal term, unified help center, which is sort of tying it together on the home screen, but yeah, it's also not applied everywhere. So what you get is like all these different experiences, different ways of reaching out to us, different, basically everything. So there's no learning behavior here, there's no recognizability. And that's why we are currently in the process of designing a global help center, which can be accessed from throughout the app. Also on the top you see the new navigation that's coming to the app. I don't know if I think it's partly launched, right? Or, yeah, so some people might already have seen it. But what it basically allows you to is to navigate to the help center, to pick your category, and to yeah, get help with your latest activities that you had inside the app, so that it becomes easier. Might not even need to call us, but we can just instantly refund you, so that it all just makes the total experience more unified. And yeah, that is it. No. Cool. Okay. Oh, spoilers. Okay. Because we also wanted to do like this trick Thiago did, but a little bit less smooth, like of introducing yourself after a couple of slides. So Liz and I just decided, like, okay, what do we want to do? We thought we just want to show one fun picture of like what we are passionate about or what we find fun. So I'm up first. This is a picture I actually took myself with an analog camera in the mountains when hiking. So this is like one of my big passions, or a couple of my big passions. This is in Italy, by the way. Yeah, these are actual glaciers that didn't melt yet. So yeah, and Liz has already fed up with this picture, I think, because I show it to everyone. Yeah.
No, but it is something.
Yeah. So, and also a little really brief background about me. So I'm Eric. I'm from the Netherlands. I live in Rotterdam. Senior UX designer at Coast Service Design. We'll tell a little bit more about like our design agency we work for as well. But first, Lisa.
So I'm proudly a new homeowner, and since August I've been renovating it myself with my partner. So it's really weird to have your life suddenly be about one thing, but it's been so much fun, and these are my friends. They have been there a lot for me. And this was actually when we moved in, so it's not done yet. Actually, the last plastering is happening this week, so right now as we speak. So I'm happy to when I come back, the house looks totally different. So I'm excited. So yeah, this is what my life's about these days.
Construction and Careem, but a little bit more Careem. Sometimes a bit construction in between. Like, nice. Okay, and a little bit about Koos, because Lisa and I are designers who work at Koos. We're an Amsterdam-based design agency. Actually met Thiago through another project, and I think he likes us because he hired us again at Careem, so that's a good sign. So yeah, what we are like originally we are a service design agency, which means that we're really focused on like deep user insights and creating services that really matter to people. But UX has been a growing part of what we do, and we're basically now combining both. And we want to partner up with like all people that are true believers of design and really think that design is the way forward, and yeah, the future of how we should shape our life and how the life we're living. Sounds really deep. So I will pass the mic to Lisa to make it a bit lighter. Oh no, wait, one more slide for me. Okay. Yeah, what we wanted to share with you today, like from our perspective, is like we've been at this project at Careem for 8 months now. Last May we started, and as you can imagine, like the scope is huge, and like our responsibilities are also like quite big and like sometimes vague. So we run into challenges. So I thought it would be fun to like share some of the challenges and what we learned from it and how we try to overcome them. And disclaimer: this is not like a finished like a presentation of like how you should do it, because we're also still learning along the way. What we want to share like our learnings on 3 challenges with you. First of all, how to make non-native services feel native. Okay, sounds a bit technical maybe, I don't know, but Lisa will explain it. Second, yeah, at the root of our design job at Careem, we are working with, for and on all services at the same time, which I will try to demonstrate causes some problems and challenges that you need to overcome, and also change the way you design a little bit. And the third challenge is about like designing an app in a different country, but also more so designing an app for like a really big geographical area. We had a conversation with Diana like before that like Uber is even like bigger like worldwide, but still Careem has like a large span of like areas with differences that we also need to take into account when designing. Okay, so now I will pass the mic to Lisa.
All right, I'm gonna kick it off with the first challenge, how we see it. Making non-native services feel native. Not everybody might know maybe what native means, but I'll quickly explain. So if you would code a product and you code it for a mobile platform, if it runs on that platform, then it's native. But actually, I will come back to it, not all of our things in the app are native. So that's why we want to dive into this challenge. Again, like what we already said, like it started as a ride-hailing app, right? And over the years, it grew into a super app. And you can already see, like next to ride-hailing, we have food, we have groceries, and a lot of other services have been added over the years. But like if we want to grow as a super app, we had to like be strategic and think about how we can scale. Tiago already mentioned this a bit, but to actually code all of these services ourselves, but also maintain them, it would be too much of a challenge. So we partnered up with existing products from the region to offer them to our users through our app. So here you can see we have a ticket service, home cleaning, PCR, laundry, car rental, and these are actually examples of partnerships we have, like with other companies that we offer through our Careem app. So what does it actually mean? Like if I would click on home cleaning here, it would redirect me to an in-app browser. So I'm still in the Careem app, but it actually loads the website on the Careem platform. So this is good to understand for the story. And actually, as you also can see, like we have, of course, native services, but also the partnerships are quite a big part of it, and it will become more and more if we grow bigger as a super app, right? So it's good to understand a bit the impact of this scope. It brings us a lot of things, right? Partnerships, we need them. And why it's nice to do this is that they have evolved products, right? They've already done a lot of the thinking, the designing, the coding, etc. So it's a ready-to-use product which we can just leverage and use and partner up with, and then it's in our app. And also, if we normally you would maybe have an app that does one thing, and then the people that work there are an expert on that specific thing. Careem, if we would be expert in every domain, like to make the perfect ride-hailing app, okay, that's one thing. But if you would become expert in every domain, like it's a bit hard, right? So why not leverage experts already that have a product, know their product, know the users, etc. So these partnerships also bring us expertise of that service. And also, it's a shared effort. So they own the product, and if you want to do some optimization, we leverage actually their engineers and their product teams to do so. So it reduces the workload, and it's a shared effort to optimize the product. So that's also really nice. But it also comes with challenges, right? So I think this is a nice example. This is already a bit from a while back. I will come back to that later. But yeah, these experience in web-based, you can see it actually looks like a browser. And here you see home cleaning, car rental, tickets. They quite look different, right? And maybe if you've seen the Careem app and used it a little bit, they also don't really feel like a Careem interface of a UI. And they also have different UX standards and patterns, different navigation. But yeah, we need these partnerships, right? So how can we make these partnerships and these services make them feel like an integrated part of the Careem app in a way that's scalable, right? So the three of the biggest challenges we encounter with our partnerships is ensure reliability and trust across our partners' experiences, because you can imagine that if I come from the Careem Super App homepage and I click on home cleaning and it looks totally different suddenly, you might want to like think twice, like what's happening, etc. So we want to make them feel like an integrated part of Careem, and also enhance the experience, right? Like, why would I use it on Careem instead of just going to that specific website myself? And also find a balance and taking control versus outsourcing workloads. So these products are a part of our Careem journey, right? So, but we don't own the products. So it's a bit of a challenge to find a balance in how much do we change the product and how much do they still keep the product the same. So it's a bit of finding a balance in that, technically also. So again, spot the differences. Here you can see a native service, the food app, the food service in Careem. And it leverages the design system that we have. So you can see the fonts, the colors, etc. It uses all our native components. And then for laundry and home cleaning, it looks totally different. I think everyone can see that. But yeah, so we've been working on actually making these services feel like a part of Careem. You can still see that it's using the same components they already had, but they updated the UI to match with our design system. And tools and methods we use and created to enable and empower our partnerships to actually go in that direction, right? We created a playbook. It's actually kind of like a guidebook that describes all of our processes that you need to know when you want to integrate to our product. So it has the design guidelines, assets to download. You can find also technical documentation there. So it is actually everything you need to know to onboard on our Careem app and to make it look and feel like this. The global experiences, of course, like the global navigation or the location services, those also help in creating a more unified experience, right? Because if I'm in a partner's experience, I still see the same navigation things. I still can leverage my location from the same way. So those also help to unify the experience. And we've been also busy creating a design system that's only for our partners. It is based on our own design system for our app, but now it's like a baby design system, like a small part of it that is relevant for our partnerships. And we've been busy also creating a web components SDK. Sounds a bit technical, but what it actually means is that we already code a lot of these things, and then the partnerships can actually use that code to update their products to make it match with Careem. So this is, for example, the integration playbook. It's a Google site for now. It actually works already quite well, and we just explain how all the processes work, what steps you need to take to actually finish or like to create a certain thing, like for example the UI guidelines, like how should they apply them to their products to make sure it looks and feels like Careem. So everything is described here, and yeah, it's not how long ago did we? In December it was, and actually the first tenant already uses it, and it was already quite a success. Like normally it would take us a lot of time in meetings, in creating examples on how to actually create that styling. But now we have the playbook and it's described, and they are empowered and enabled to do it themselves. And then we need like 2 meetings and it's done. So it really is a scalable solution. Laundry is live and just live. Yeah, yeah. And of course, the Aurora design system. So here you can see an example of the design system for a native application. And then we made like a small selection of what is actually relevant for our partnerships, because giving them the whole design system wouldn't make sense, so only the components they need. And as an example, again, the web SDK. It looks a bit boring, but it's like everything described, like how the design system works, and also you can just leverage the code from here and then use it for your own products. So that's actually quite exciting. Yeah, that was it for tenants.
And I think SDK stands for Software Development Kit, right?
Yeah.
So also to sort of describes it quite well, I think as well. Okay, so second challenge, which is quite a daunting one, I think, if you read it, like In our task, we are like we're designing with, for, and on multiple services at the same time. And I will try to illustrate you what it means, what the implications are, and what the difficulties are when you're doing this. So yeah, let's go to an example again, and you might start to recognize a certain pattern. This is the activities view currently in the Careem app. So this is the history of all of your rides, history of your food, and a history of your grocery orders. They are all in separate apps. They look similar, yet also slightly different. Yeah, and for some of the services, this was also a long time not available, but I think like for now there are. So we were given the task for activities to create, again, a unified experience, one place to find all of your activities in the app. So basically do this, like create one view of all of the services, for all of the services and all of your activities. So yeah, you might think like that sounds quite simple, right? Like you just take one template, stick another visual on it, and yeah, you're basically done, and you can just go on with your life, and we have fixed yet another problem. Well, we were actually about to open Pandora's box, although we also didn't really realize it, like when we started doing this. And I will try to explain like why it is like actually incredibly complicated by giving you a comparison. I tried to, this is all made up by me, so also correct me like if you have a different experience, but this is like what I envision like the services to be. So I tried to map out like the customer journey of like a ride versus a food order. And the colors are like the phase of the customer journey, so like either before the service starts, during the service, and after the service. So when you go to the ride, first you are searching for a captain, like assuming that you filled in the address you wanted to go for. Then you're waiting for the captain to arrive. Okay, then the service starts because the ride starts, captain has arrived, you get in the car. Then you drive to your destination, socialize a little bit with the captain maybe, talking about the weather, even though it's not an exciting topic probably in Dubai because it's basically always the same. Then you get stuck in a traffic jam, you hide your frustration because you don't really want to create an awkward situation, and eventually you arrive at your destination. So that's like the service you get and what you pay for. And eventually you leave a tip and a review, and that's like the end of the cycle. Then let's go to the food order. So you place your food order, the restaurant is preparing the food, so that's already like another party involved in this whole service. You check your app for the ETA because you are hungry. Your food gets handed over to a captain who is going to deliver it to your house. You're still hungry, so you're checking the ETA again, like if it's already there. And then finally the captain arrives with your food, you're happy. And then this is actually like the during section because it was all about like eating the food. So in your customer journey, eating that hamburger you just ordered is like what you actually wanted to, what you paid for. Even though Careem is not really involved in that phase because you're just on the couch or at the table eating your food. And then in the end, yeah, would be nice to leave a small tip and a review, of course, for the lovely captain bringing your food. So you can see like that there's a lot of differences between these services, and of course, like when you first ask this question, of course it's different. But there are some inherent differences which also result in complexities when you are designing this generic overview. For example, like this ride is a service because the ride itself is what you are paying for. While here you're actually buying a product and we are delivering you a service. There's like in the Careem world, there's not really a during phase like when you have your food because yeah, there's nothing ongoing. Like once it arrives, it's sort of like done from a Careem perspective. Yeah, so these are only two examples. But imagine that you multiply this by all of the services that are added to the app right now, which are also ranging for example, buying a cinema ticket, going by bike, having a laundry service, or actually having people washing your clothes and bringing them to your house and also picking them up. Like they're all different. Also home cleaning, there's someone in your house cleaning your house. So they're all completely different. And then imagine that you also have unhappy flows, like for example, captain not showing up, someone getting in your cab, like all of these scenarios. And edge cases like yeah, if you order like for a different time zone, so if you're going to a different time zone, what do you show? Like, do you show that time? Do you show the Dubai time? What do we do with those cases? And then envision that we are also growing the amount of services, so it should also work for future services. And you have legacy designs for some of the pieces, like food, ride, already have like stuff in place, which they also are quite attached to because it's completely tailored to their situation. So yeah, they also love that sort of. So that can make you feel like that GIF, like in the right bottom. But yeah, that's like not a solution. So we had to come to like a solution on how to yeah, deal with this situation and actually create something that is valuable for our customers and doesn't drive us mad. So yeah, this again comes to the point that Lisa also mentioned, like it's impossible for us to become an expert in each of these services because we're not only a food app, we're not only a ride app, we're a super app. So we do it all, and we can't learn like enough to be an expert all of these things. So we figured out we had to reconsider our role. Like we call ourselves UX designers, but we actually had to become template designers, which is not the sexiest term I think you ever heard, but I will try to explain why it is actually really valuable for like what we do, and also why we call ourselves template designers. Yeah, so what does the work of a template designer look like? We not only empathize with our end users, like talk to them about how they experience our service and what they want to see, but we also need to empathize with the actual experts in the Careem team, because on Thiago's slide of the design team, you saw on the left-hand side that there are people just working on food. And they know a lot about that service and what's going on and what people need. So yeah, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but also like leverage that internal knowledge and come to a solution together. And then it's all about like finding the right amount of freedom, because if you are working on food, you want to have the best solution for food. So you have a image in your head of what you think it should look like the activities section. But if you're working for ride, it might be slightly different. You might want to see the address someone is driving to. So they all have different needs, and we need to cater for it, but also defend the uniformity of the solution so that it stays recognizable for people and that it's not like going like from left to right and it's still like just a bunch of different solutions bundled in one screen. And then it needs to be scalable. So that's also where the term template comes in. Like by keeping it slightly broad, but also like giving guidelines, you create something that's scalable and it is applicable to all kinds of services if we are doing it the right way. Yeah, so some like tools we use to do this. For example, for the activities design, we did internal card sorting next to external card sorting. You see the phases here again, like upcoming, during, and after, like the phases of the journey. And we wanted to pick the brains of the designers, like what they think is important information at that phase. And we did the same with our end users because they also have their opinions, and we also want to hear from them firsthand what they think. Yeah, next to that, then like the result can be something like this. This is still very much in progress, and it will definitely not look like this when it launches. But we are like creating templates, for example, for each detail page of your order, that it has the same structure. That you, for example, have quick actions at the top, that you can quickly reorder food. But for ride, it can be a different purpose for the button, and that people can configure it, but that they don't ruin the template by yeah, basically only focusing on their own service and having too much freedom. Yeah, so that's our journey in becoming template designers, and it's still very much ongoing and trying things out. Last one.
Yes. I actually saw 100 cities. Okay, that's the first mistake. 100 cities, yeah. So we were thinking like it is a nice challenge to talk about because, like, for example, we live in the Netherlands and we design here out for Dubai. But even in like the region here, like Careem operates in so many different cities. So here you can see on the world map like how spread it is actually, right? So we have to acknowledge the fact that these places and the people that live there, they all have different habits. They own a different culture. The logistics can be very different in all of these places. The way of life, religion, etc. But also, for example, iconography. So yeah, one symbol in one part of the world can mean something different totally somewhere else, right? So these kind of differences we have to take into account as designers and empathize with that. Um, so as an example, we operate also in Lahore, and traffic can look like this, right? In Dubai, it's already totally different. So in Lahore, you can see there's a different and limited infrastructure. Taking like a Careem there, it's such a different experience than doing the same in Dubai, right? But it is the same service and the same interface in the app. There's probably an unstable internet coverage, way more than there is in Dubai. A Careem ride also looks different. In Lahore, you take a rickshaw. In Dubai, it's probably a very fancy car. So that's already a big difference in the experience. And yeah, this looks like total madness. And this has like really good infrastructure and sometimes a bit of a lot of traffic, of course. But yeah, so you can already see like the same service offering that we have has on the local side a totally different experience. So in order to design truly meaningful services, you have to empathize with the context, right? And to give an example of that, imagine when you are designing for people in debt. We actually had this experience at Coast that we really like to go in people's houses to actually empathize and interview. And what you then can see there then suddenly is that there's a pile of unopened letters on the table. And you would never have seen that if you were just doing a remote interview, right? But also there can be like a high-end television standing in the living room, but they are in debt, but like they make these decisions sometimes to spend their money on things they really care about. But also the emotional side of things is suddenly you see in the kitchen that there's like a big pile of dishes standing there because like, yeah, it is an emotional roller coaster to have like financial problems. And what we also saw is that there's sometimes a lack of furniture in the living room. So they have things, but like if you're on debts, you might have to sell a lot of your things to keep up with life. And we've never would have seen this if we were just doing a remote interview. So actually being in the context of what you're designing for, it's truly, truly important. I will just quickly, there's a UX demo. So yeah, this is actually our first time in Dubai. Been lovely. And what you actually see is that we in the Netherlands, of course, are fan of bikes, so that's why we took this example. So we saw the Careem bikes, and they're everywhere, right? You see them riding everywhere. But then what a bicycle path actually looks like, where are they? And if they are there, like they stop suddenly, or you have to like get out of your bike and I don't know, take it over the fence or something. It's for us, it was really crazy to see this. Like, it's like if we would just design it from home, right? Then it's solely you would never know that this is actually the experience right here in Dubai. So that's really really cool to see. And so things to keep in mind when designing from a different geolocation. This is how we empathize with that. Like we have to acknowledge the fact that we do that. So if you have colleagues from the target context, reach out to them, right? And inside your company, and let them challenge you of what the actual experience is right there where you're designing for. Conduct a lot of user research, of course. Like we do that all the time, and within those interviews, you learn bit by bit how the culture is, what it actually feels and like to be in Dubai or other regions. And yeah, it is already quite interesting to do so. And go out there and experience it firsthand. We, of course, had the amazing opportunity to be here this week. And it's been amazing so far. We already learned a lot in a couple of days that we've been here about how it actually is to be around in the city. Yeah, we've been super users for these past days. It's actually really nice to experience it. But also accept that you will never truly understand everything, right? It's inherent to design. this is a quote of Eric. I'm gonna say, designing is a puzzle with a missing piece at all times. It's never finished, right? So you will never get it completely right. So always stay open, curious, and enable yourself to learn from all of the different people around the world, cultures, worldviews, and stay humble in that. So this is what our like approaches to this, to be curious at all times. Oh, thanks. That was it. Yeah, I think questions. Yeah. Yeah. Let's do one here and then. Yeah. 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 What's your name? Can you? Oh yeah, I will give you the mic. It's a bit warm. I'm sorry.
My name is Sesu Yaji. Nice to meet you. My question is the journey of the user. When the user leaves the Careem app and goes into using another service, where does he go from there? Does he come back to the Careem app, or?
You mean with the first challenge I was talking about, or? Mm-hmm.
User leaves the Careem interface and goes into your partner's interface. What's the journey from there?
So the web experience loads in the app, so they don't actually leave the Careem app. So you press a service or click on a service, and you will be redirected within the Careem app. So they will not leave, and if they're done with like using the service, then they can go back to the homepage like within a click. So that's how we do it. Yeah.
And also maybe to add on to that, like that's also why, for example, the navigation is really important, like the right top button you saw on some of the pages. Because, for example, if you're in that web view, that you can still go to help and get like help with your laundry service. Because before, you were actually in the website browsing to help, which was like, again, like a completely different customer care phone number, and like it's just really confusing. Like, who am I calling? Like, am I calling a partner or am I calling Careem? So we're fixing that as well. Like,
I'll run to you.
So the question is from Hatham Nazir. So he's asking, with all these complexities in design, infrastructure, and also ensuring it's scalable, how do you still ensure design efforts are efficient to ensure deployments are rapid?
No, it's a good question.
like how we keep the design efforts efficient and also develop deployments rapid. Yeah, that's actually. Yeah, he's thinking about it.
Well, I think a good part in answering that question. Try to look over there. A good part in answering that question, I think, touches on design system. I think one thing that helps teams, design teams, and in working in conjunction with development teams to accelerate taking experience out to customers is certainly a design system, something that we've been investing on, and certainly organizations that have high maturity understanding of what design is and the role that design can play in an organization, they make the due diligence and take the time to invest in a design system. And ultimately what that means is you spend a lot more time in building a product that will ultimately enable the rest of your products, and through which you can focus more time on the problems, less on pixels, and then you can get that scalability and that speed and that efficiency to customers in a much faster rate. If I got the question right.
We got a long list. While we wait, keep you in the hot seat, Tiago. Don't sit down. I just thought it is interesting. You've hired a service design agency and asked them not to do service design. In your map there, you didn't mention service design. Is there a presence in your team? And if so, like how it's different to your traditional product design in most product organizations? How have you brought it in, if you have?
Well, so we There's always space for service design. There will always be space for that. We've had the pleasure and opportunity, as the team alluded to, I've had the opportunity to work with Koj in the past in the prerogative of a service design exercise. And it was in a different company, and we definitely realize the potential of what service design can bring to an organization. Really think holistically, think beyond the digital and go into all the touch points, right? And if you see a product like Careem and what the team and I'm just a houseplant, what they really walked through today, it really is ripe for service design understanding, right? And going deep into that. With that said, I do have to touch on the fact that this answer it can be a very long answer, but to just say that in region, I found relatively hard to hire talent, even product design talent. And so if I think of the whole slew of problems I have at the table right now, really meeting the need and the demand for scaling experiences like this and really thinking in leveling up product design as a discipline, that is the first fire to put out. Then thinking more holistically and how can design come in and really bring all of these services that the team talk about together, think holistically. It's in the cards. If I'm oversharing here, it's been in the workforce planning for last year, just didn't get approved. And so it really is a prioritization game. We know the benefit that this would bring. We've been dabbling with what that could mean in terms of outcome, and then it's just really seeing that through and trying to get that buy-in from leadership to get folks involved.
UXR research department, just a UX research department. So everything we do also together with a researcher on the team, and we conduct a lot of usability research or explorative research or some needs-based interviews, right? So we do have that at Careem, yeah.
And secretly, we also just put a little bit of service design in, like what we do. So that's why I made the journey slide, because I had a list. Did you have more questions or some? First. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have another question from Mohammed Khan. So he's asking, how much time do you normally spend in designing or building UX for a component of the app?
A component in the app, I think, is like extremely broad. Like it really determines on like what it is. Yeah, and we also iterate a lot, right? It's not as if we know like, okay, we need this component and we design it and then we just check it off. Like we crit it, we talk to development to see like if it works or not. And in general, like we design experiences and not necessarily like separate components. I think that's more like the right side of Thiago's design team's slide, like the Aurora design system team, where it could be a completely separate presentation. They like enable us as well by creating like components, and they are launching like really frequently and like adding these new components to the design system, so that we can also just leverage what's there. And again, like uniformity, everyone using the same components just makes the whole app like feel more consistent. Okay, so it's a bit of a fake answer, sorry, but
I want to add a bit on that, like, because we design experiences and new parts of the app, right? It's not only about like the one little component. There's maybe a process of weeks, because we first conduct user research, then we make a first version, then we usability test it, then again we iterate it, we crit it with all stakeholders, all the designers from other teams, and then test it maybe again. So that one little thing you see on the screen, I don't know, maybe 1,000 versions before it is actually it's done, at least the one-time launch. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow. if it looks like, I think in my experience, like if the UX looks incredibly simple and like a sort of a solution that you think you could have thought of like in an hour, then you've done it right, because there's probably like weeks and months of work in it to actually get to that simple solution. That's
I'd like to add, I think it's a great question, Mohammed, and I'd love to add a perspective, maybe more 36,000 foot view of the question. There's a lot of truisms or commandments, if you'd call them, for design, right? That sometimes they're much easier said than actually executed and done by the teams. What I think Eric and Lisa spoke about, the technicalities behind building a component, I think gives it a great overview. But from where I stand, I think another way to look at it is you do a good job as a designer if, okay, it's a loose percentage, don't quote me on this, but like if 80 to 90% of your time is spent in problem, really understanding the problem, and then 10 to 20% on that solution, on the technicalities in Figma, in actually designing. So if the intention behind the question is where to invest from an areas of improvement, or where to invest, like I'm an aspiring designer or want to grow as a designer, really invest in sort of critical thinking, in problem understanding, problem definition, and really go deep in that. Because as I said earlier, and as we've alluded to now a number of times, a lot of organizations today, especially the more mature ones, of course you cannot speak to a startup, but even maybe startups, they start to leverage a lot of like white label options here. Design systems are going to change the game, right? So designers are going to spend a lot less time in pixels and a lot more time in really understanding customers. From there, really defining thorough problem statements. Then from there, what are the right problems for us to tackle, and then solving them in the right way. And that solving them in the right way is, it can be a minuscule amount. It's still thousands of iterations, that's true. Still.
Yes, I had the question more on the pool of users that you find when you do your prior research, and then for your usability research. So who do you know how to contact? How do you select the candidates?
So we don't do that ourselves. We have Samir. He's our UX research wizard, we call him. He's really good at his job, and he actually has contact with a recruitment agency. So they do the recruitment for us, and they select based on our criteria, what we see as like a good balance between users. You can also imagine we have a lot of different users. Like some people only use ride-hailing. So we call them single service users. Then you have people who only use food, that are food single service users. And we also have people that use multiple services. So laundry, food, rides, home cleaning, etc. So you can imagine that those people have different needs, they are like, and some people use it once a week and others use it like 5 times a day. Like there's so many different user types, and we always consider those while doing research. So that's what we tell the recruitment agency, and then they deliver to us great candidates.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty clear that today our strategy sits between UAE, really continuing to win this market, and then win the KSA market. And so every time you go out and you think about let's do usability research or product discovery research, we try to keep within these locations to really get a thorough understanding. And there's a lot of localization that goes into this. So doing product discovery in KSA, typically you get a lot of very different results stem off of that compared to studies done in UAE for some of the reasons that Lisa highlighted, but certainly a lot of other ones.
I had something to complete on the user research. Do you take into account accessibility, or like special user profile? How do you call this, equity as well, or something? I think, yeah, inclusion, all of these topics. Yeah.
I can answer that. I think like we do, but we can improve a lot with that still. I think our product is at a place where, if I may say so, where it's really also time to invest in it. Like we spoke about the geolocation challenge, but there's so much more that we can enrich these products, and also due to inclusion or equity or accessibility, where we can like tailor these products to match with the culture there. So I think we are now really there today that we can leverage the product to that level, actually. Yeah.
We do. It somewhat is. Again, I'll go back to the same thing, design system. Through the design system, we have a lot of accessibility standards. We are setting, defining, and following a number of accessibility standards. I can't say that we have an accessibility team or experts, but we certainly do our due diligence. We even connected with both Apple and Google on the topic. We shared a lot of knowledge just to ensure that we're meeting the right standards. But from a user research perspective and being inclusive in the types of cohorts we bring, that's a really good topic and something that Lisa alluded to. We need to do a better job at.
Actually, like, what is kind of cool for me was the first time actually at Careem. There's so many different people working there from different cultures from all over the world. So already that's, I think, helps shape our products in a more inclusive way. So yeah, everyone has different perspectives, different ways of upbringing, etc. And I think that already, like, our tigers already enable us in that sense to create a more inclusive product.
Yeah, and also when you create something which doesn't have enough contrast, then Lisa also comes to chase you because she is really like the accessibility police. So yeah, I already learned the hard way. So I'm the
Yeah, just continue on that one, and on what you were talking about. I worked at a property finder, which has similar challenges, and I've done research in Saudi and Egypt, very different markets. Arabic's the primary experience in a lot of those markets, except for here. How do you didn't mention it, like how do you design in a language you don't speak? Maybe it's more of a Tiago question. You have, how do you do research? How do you do design? And when the majority of the team, your tigers, don't speak the language either, right?
So that is one of the biggest Achilles heels we have. We unfortunately have many. I'll say this transparently. I will say though, and this is just a value that as a leader I like to uphold. I try to make our customer the center of gravity to how we establish the teams. Not to say that once we encounter issues like establishing a team in Dubai, it's really hard. So you have to try to open up and make it as diverse and apply plays like what the team was talking about today in terms of how do you still do great design but from a remote location. And what does that mean? Checklist and do it. With that said, writing, research, these are disciplines and muscles that we absolutely want to enrich with Arabic-speaking tigers. We do have an Arabic-speaking researcher. Really hard to find writing talent. If anybody knows anyone, just putting it out there. And we have 4 Arabic-speaking designers. And to a lot of what Lise and Eric mentioned as well, a lot of it is also engaging not only with the local customers, and obviously language will be a barrier, but also leveraging our local teams to do that communication, to be that bridge. The good thing about Careem, that I think it's been a while since I've been in a company that I can speak to this benefit, is that we end up, the folks that sit in the region, we're all users, right? So the topic of even dog fooding a product that's big in organizations, just because it's almost something you're asked to do. It's part of your, like, okay, every week go play with our product, leave feedback. Here it's just part of our daily lives. Like, we use it every day, right? And so the constant, that passion and that sense of ownership of folks just dropping feedback, we need to change this, we need to change that. Obviously then it's on the design team to try to channel that and what good does come out of that, what do we prioritize, etc. But that I think also helps alleviate a little bit of the language barrier, because we have folks on the ground in Egypt, in Jordan, in KSA, in Pakistan using our product, and this applies both to tigers, but even our captains. They're very, very vocal, right? And so even on the captain side, it's hard to not keep top of mind what is not working, right? We have that communication channel very open on both ends.
The delivery part. I love that. They don't have that many parts of the world. We can deliver anything, anywhere.
I have another question, just with what you mentioned actually. So how do you collect all of this feedback? Because I guess that a lot of it is actually the same thing said differently, and I bet it comes through different channels, whether the captains, the tigers, and us. So how do you mutualize this, and then how are you able to identify and prioritize what should be in the roadmap?
Second Achilles heel. Second Achilles heel. Thanks for highlighting it. Second problem, big problem. Documentation, huge beast. So there's a number of tools we tried over the 2 years at least that we're now honing in on Airtable as a good potential solution for us to use as A, documentation, and B, sharing it broadly. We do have a couple of communication channels that we send on a weekly basis around company execution. And through that, sometimes we share, hey, we found this about the customers. Customers are saying this, so more on the customer insights piece. We also used to do a lot more of this, not anymore. We'll still do customer care calls. So we actually, as Tigers, we can just join these meetings and just listen to what customers are saying. We actually sometimes play back care calls. And remember, care calls are typically at a very end of the frustration funnel. Like people are like, I'm so frustrated, I'm going to call Careem. Right, and so this is really when the big feedback comes out, and so we do take the time to sit in through those, jot a bunch of notes, and if they're quick wins, then we immediately take them to product. If they're not quick wins, then we'll speak more from a product development perspective and how do we put them in the pipeline. We have Slack feedback channels, so we also record a lot of.
Maybe to add on that, like you get just tagged, like some people, like you see feedback coming in, and it's like, add Lisa, and then it's like, oh yeah, this is my scope, I need to feel responsible for this feedback, and then that's how it gets unrolled to the teams, right? It's actually, even like the CEO can leave a feedback, and then you can today, too many, yeah, actually, yeah.
And then just to close that, the other thing that I would say is, as a research team, it's a it's one of the goals that we have from both the democratization of the craft, but also democratization of the understanding of customer insights. It's where do we record all of this? And again, it comes back to tooling. Today we have scattered slide decks, right? We have an Excel spreadsheet where we collect all of those. We keep reminding leadership this is where it sits. I will say though, saying this reminded me, even 2023 strategies, we did use the sheet of like, here's all the customer research that we've done, here's everything that you can share, research consumed it for a good week. And I can't say all of it, but a lot of it did come into sort of strategies that we have today. Of course, last year was a hard year economically for everybody, so there's a lot of debt that we have to pay across the board. So, but from an experience perspective, there's certain verticals that are just honed in on experience, and it's great. And a lot of it came from the insights that we generated.
I just wanted to add, so one tool I'd recommend is called Dovetail. It's a research repository. I've used it for 3.5 years now in 2 different organizations. And it lets you, it transcribes the interviews. So it could be a Zoom interview, it could be an audio interview. It's pretty impressive, about 90% accurate. And then it helps you with the research process. So you tag those interviews, and you can then create themes. And a recent feature they launched is kind of like a Miro board, so you can then cluster and create insights. So it helps you to teach research to your designers, your product managers. And if you can get other folks outside of product and design, like customer success, marketing, legal, whoever, also using the tool, then one, everyone can see it, but also you are sharing research. And you've got, hopefully the CEO logs in too, and you can see analytics of who is looking at what, and that that again helps, because yes, historically that's the challenge. It's everywhere. Everybody uses a different tool, and there's no standard exactly. So, yeah.
Also, maybe to add to that, like, I'm not an expert on the topic, but a lot of people at COS are busy like working on projects like this. It's like customer journey management. So I think Dovetail is like, you still have like the challenge of like, how is this structured? And customer journey management tools actually think that like customer journeys are the answer, because like if you map all the journeys and have like your insights tied to the part of the journey that they are about, you create like a sort of structure of like all the sort of user flows that you have, and you can also monitor them with like quantitative data and like see if numbers are going down on crucial parts of your user journeys. Like again, I'm not a specialist, but I know like the tool they do is like yeah.
But it has a different purpose. But I agree, you need the journey maps, and you need to remove the fog from that puzzle.
Yeah, we're sort of friends with they do. I think yeah, and also one of our former colleagues works there now as a designer. So oh, Guido as well. Oh yeah, okay, we're really friends with them. We also don't need the microphone anymore, right? Like, oh,
Tiago, this is for you. You mentioned earlier it's tough to get talent. What do you think is the biggest challenge that you face trying to get talent here on the ground, and why do you think that is? I mean, I work in talent myself, and I know the challenge. Trying to attract people here and things. What's the biggest challenge you face, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, that. I mean, that one alone we can spend probably a day talking about. But I'll just maybe summarize it into one. If you think of it from a competencies matrix perspective, obviously competencies are required at different levels in seniority. For the state of Careem, when I came in, we were a team of maybe 12, 14 people, and we needed to scale to like 60. We wanted to get sort of the big shots, right? The his and hers that are going to come in and just going to completely revolutionize, bring the agenda, and multiply it across the organization. Senior talent, I found was a missing, right? And talent, it's ripe for folks that really want to get into it. And I'm, by the way, not just UAE and Dubai. I'm talking the regions we operate. A lot of passion. There's a lot of folks that know the beginnings of it, but then, like, not to call them out, but I think it was pretty clear, folks that you can just say, okay, go do it, and then you can go off for like 3 weeks and then check in on like reviews and, yeah, thumbs up, good, thank you. There's not a lot, right? So really defining a clear competency matrix first of what you need for the organization today, maybe in your first 1 to 3 months, and then going to the organization and saying, hey, yeah, we can try here. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of education and mentoring and coaching. Maybe we don't even have the talent internally to do that, or we can just hire distributedly and go do that. Which then you probably ask, why don't you just fly the folks out here and relocate them here? Which then COVID is problem number 2, right? And folks' inbox is filled with, hey, I'm going to pay you $1 million. You can stay working from home, and you live a good and happy life, and you're challenged with a great job that you have, and or relocate to Dubai. It's beautiful, and there's all these factors that come with it, right? And I think folks are now reluctant on that, right? I can't speak for everyone. We did move a couple of people, and really strong people. But first is really a thorough understanding of what you need. Where is that talent pool located? And sometimes you need to even outsource out, right? I hate the term, but you need to bring in experts to be an extension of the team, right? And yeah, so it would be those two. I think there's many more, but yeah.
Everybody else online, thank you guys so much. We're gonna stop the stream, and we'll send over recordings perhaps of the presentation. Up to you guys. Yeah, shortly. So thanks, guys.